newspaper?
Today, class, we are going to learn about one proportion z-test.
Do you know what a one proportion z-test is, dude?
Nah, but if you go to page 516, it should be right there.
516? Ah, my book. Hey, Mr. Vaughn, what's a one proportion z-test?
Well, Jake, I'm glad you asked. The first thing you need to know is the toolbox we will be using. In step 1, you will have to identify the population and parameter of the problem. You also have to state the ho and ha. In number 2, you have to choose the procedure. And then you will have to verify by checking the SRS, multiplying the number and probability and making sure it's greater than 10, multiplying the number times 1 minus the probability and making sure it's greater than 10, and checking to make sure the population is 10 times greater than the sample size. For number 3, you must calculate and find the z-score, p, and the significance test. And then number 4, you must interpret.
Mr. Vaughn, I got my toolbox here, but I'm not sure what the ho and the ha actually mean. So could you explain that to me?
Well, Rob, I'm glad you have your toolbox. But the ho is the null hypothesis, and the ha is the alternative hypothesis.
Mr. Vaughn, do I need a toolbox like that too, or because I don't have one. I can go to my house and get one though. Mr. Vaughn, can we get an example then? Because I don't think I understand.
Yeah, we're gonna need that.
Well, class, let's do number 1 together. In the book Life in America's Small Cities, G.S. Thomas reports that in 1990, 22.1% of all 16 to 19-year-olds in Key West, Florida were high school dropouts. In 1995, a random sample of 193 people in this Key West age group showed that 32 were dropouts. Does this indicate the proportion of high school dropouts in Key West is less than 22.1%? Test at 5% significance.
Mr. Vaughn, I got a question. So, in the context of that problem, what do we do first?
Well, first you need to list out a few variables. P will equal 22.1%. N will equal 193. X equals 32. You can find P hat by dividing 32 by 193 to get 0.1658, and the significance level is 0.05. For number 1, we identified that the population is 16 to 19-year-olds in Key West. Also, the parameter is the proportion of dropouts. Our null hypothesis is P equals 0.221. Our alternative hypothesis is P is less than 0.221. For number 2, we can choose the procedure of a one proportion z-test. And then to verify, we see that it is an SRS, and if you multiply n times p, it is greater than 10. Also, if you multiply n times 1 minus p, it is also greater than 10. And we can also say that the population is 10 times greater than the sample space.
Mr. Vaughn, I have a question. I'd like to know what you put in your calculator to solve the actual one proportion z-test.
First, you go to Stat, then you go over to Tests, and go down to one proportion z-test. Then you have to put in your probability, which is 0.221, your x, which is 32, your n, which is 193, and you have to bold the thing that says less than, and then press Calculate.
Okay. So what exactly do we do with the data that we just calculated on the calculator?
Well, now you can put that into number 3, which will say z equals negative 1.85, p equals 0.0323, and the significance level is 0.05. With that, you can do number 4, where you can say you reject the null hypothesis at significance level of 0.05, which means there are less than 22.1% dropouts in this Key West age group.
Ooh, I now understand. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn, for teaching us this wonderful lesson of one proportion z-test.
This is for you, Miss Martin Smith.